Abby, this episode was really, it caught me a little bit off guard. Like I really tapped into a young part of me that it really inspired me to yet again deepen my level of self-love. It was very moving for me.
Yeah, same for me. Being part of the conversation and tuning into it was really an incredible witnessing of the power, the ripple effect when we, build in these innate qualities in our children of how to show up and be seen and feel safe being seen and be able to find our creative expression. I really appreciated all of the tools that were shared. There's some gorgeous, gorgeous affirmations that I think will root people in their bones.
Yeah, that's well said. Beautiful. All right. Enjoy the episode, everyone. Well, hello, both of you. Hello, Alana. Hi, Katie.
Yes. Hello. And Alana, I'm so happy to have you join us today. We were just talking with Soph before we recorded about how we met each other, and we've known each other for, gosh, close to 30 years. And one of the reasons that I wanted to invite you into the show is the value of creativity and the value of turning our attention toward creativity and how that creates so many different possibilities in our lives, connections with others, being able to, change our own internal states, but also joining with others to co-create. Has it really been your specialty for years and years? And so I'd love for you first to just share the, turning the wheel and, basically what that's about. And then we can just move on from there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so just tell us in a few simple words what turning the wheel is about.
Well, I just first want to thank you for letting me be here. I was feeling really nervous until I saw you. And it's like, oh, this is Katie, who's always been my teacher and my mentor and always been a positive force in my life. So just take a deep breath, Elena. So, yeah. So, Turning the Wheel is a national nonprofit that does outreach to youth at risk, or we like to think of them as underserved and vulnerable youth across the country, all through the arts. So, theater, writing their own narrative, making their own costumes, staging their own shows, learning, making up their own dance. The whole layers of productivity, of creativity. So there's not just one thing or another. And it all comes from their own story, their own bodies, gestures, and movements. And so we're not putting movement on these youth, we're allowing them to express themselves. And we do have lots of prongs. We are teaching teachers how to bring this work into classrooms. We have huge performance events where these kids are brought in with professional artists and professional staging and music to perform in front of their whole community. We have this going into the schools, working directly with the kids in the classrooms, all these different ways that we come to the story of how do we support our young people in staying with discovering their creativity, discovering their energy of innovation and movement and showing up. And because all the kids that we work with are basically invisible in our culture, people don't even know they're here, they're that underside of the story.
Yes, yeah. So that's a beautiful synopsis of giving people who are invisible a way to find their own visibility, but also, so much of my work is about creating from the inside out rather than adjusting and, and letting the culture tell you who you are. And so one of the things I so appreciate about your work over all these years is that you're curious about who are these people, what in, and if they get to find their own essence and express their own essence into the world, everybody benefits. The community benefits, family, but they benefit. So the ripple out into the community is just enormous, rather than, training them for some job, letting their own creativity then begin to form their life path.
Yeah, I mean, that's so beautiful. Thank you for that. I mean, it's really big that when we come into the room, our message is show up as you are. That often the educators want to tell us this kid will be trouble and this kid is going to do this. And we're like, never mind. we don't need any of the old stories, And after just a very short time, we have to build safety and trust. These kids do not come from safe worlds,
No.
But very quickly, with a lot of the deepest Hendrix tool there is, a lot of appreciation, they come in. When they start seeing that who they are is okay with us, and we verbalize a lot of that appreciation, they show up. And they don't even know the people that are showing up inside them. They haven't seen these parts.
That must be so inspiring to be in the presence of somebody finding out who they can be. I mean, to me, that would be, it would be so life affirming. I mean, regardless of everything else, just that, that sense of that you're contributing to the creation and the recreation of, and dumping old stories and a new co-creative story.
Yeah, and that's, you're just so get what we do, because it is the co-creation that's so important. So that the culmination of these residencies is a performance, and the performance is really, really important, and not just because they're going to be seen by a community that doesn't even know they exist, but even more the way they have to work together. So now they become team members, and they have to show up for each other, and they even have to learn each other's names, which they do not know when we arrive,
Right. And
mixing up groups that would never be co-creating together, learning new things about each other, stereotypes falling away, I mean, it's incredible to watch that co-creation. And we are watching it, Katie. Mm-hmm. We are not making them co-create. We are creating an environment that allows them, It's just a witnessing. I mean, you're so right on when you say how inspiring it is.
Yes.
I'm curious about something, Alana, if I can dig there. Families sometimes, so you have the child maybe that works with you or plays with you, and then goes back in an environment that may or may not see them and continue that particular appreciation and, help them in their creativity. Like, I'm curious to does that create a little bit of or do you also transform in the family dynamics? Because otherwise I would think that the kid could be given an opportunity over here and then send him back into an environment that's not that. I'm curious to how you...
Yeah, that's really wise. I mean, the truth is, despite stereotypes, many of our families are holding their kids pretty darn well. It's the schools that are labeling the kids. This is a troubled kid, a kid who cannot achieve, a kid who's not smart, a kid who doesn't know how to talk, whatever it is, But it is true. These kids come from sometimes a lot of violence and alcoholism, and they do go back to that, and then they come back to us, and then they go back to that. And that's partly why training the teachers is so important, because then the school environment where they spend a lot of time has more influence than otherwise. And it's also true that I came from this story big time, and from a very violent, very alcoholic family. And it was those little moments where somebody showed up for me, somebody showed me another way. I still didn't sustain that right away, but as those moments began to build, I was like what my great corporate guy used to say, I had a window in my wall, Mm-hmm. It was, and one built on another, And we do go back and back. We know we see kids all the way through up into middle school sometimes, which is very exciting. And sometimes it's a breakthrough moment. I mean, I know we've all had those, right? So we had a couple boys when we arrived in Port Angeles working with the tribal kids there who had been suspended for fighting. And they missed our first day, and they came back for our second day. And oh my gosh, they were just so grumpy. They were on the wall with their arms folded, leaning back. It's like, no way, right? And by the end, with working together and in teams and playing, mostly playing, that is the big thing, just playing and playing and playing. They ended up in the performance doing what we call a sacred hand dance together, where they were dancing on the front of the stage in front of the whole school, doing this, reflecting each other, mirroring each other dance. And oh my gosh, and the teacher said it stayed with them forever. It was like a big breakthrough moment for them, But I really hear you. We have to know that we are not going to be able to take all these kids home with us, right? That some of them will make it and some of them won't. And we just I think in the last 36 years, we've reached at least 500,000 kids. And who knows what percentage of those really stepped into a new life. Some of them we know, of course, because we've stayed in touch and they've ended up teaching with us. And, so it's definitely, what you're onto is definitely part of the challenge of the work, which is letting go. We bring what we bring, we stand beside them, and we know we're not in charge, of what they do with it. So it's a really beautiful question.
One of the things that's occurring to me as you're speaking is the ripple effect of something I found so important, which is turning what's happening into creative expression. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we don't often think of. We think of, well, there's a problem and we need to think of what the linear solution is for that. And we don't even really take account of, if I expand my creativity and my ability to create, it's going to permeate my life and it's going to solve the problem. But if I just focus on the problem, and I'm keeping in the story of there are problems and then there's solutions to problem, but when we turn life into creative expression, then that's often the best solution to anything, is how can I express this creatively? How can I can't, I may not be able to change the circumstances, but I can change my response to them. And my sense is that through play, which is part of, our podcast is Be, Play, Love. And right. I think that what you do illustrates all of them, that you allow people to be. You allow kids to be, and you're curious about their being, and then you love them by being in the same space with them. And then you all play together. And I'm also imagining that not only is our society play deprived right now, it's being cut out of the curriculum of schools, but we don't really, we haven't really utilized the power of play. And so that's a lot of what I see you demonstrating, and that Turning the Wheel demonstrates, is the enormous power of play.
I love that, Katie, because they really are Be, Play, Love. It's like, let the kids be who they are, play with them and fall in love with them, and everything changes in the room. We have teachers who stand on the side and go, what are you doing? I have never seen these kids laugh. I have never seen them play with each other. They don't know each other's names. They don't ever make teams. It's like they just haven't been given that opportunity. That's all, to show up. And I think what you said that's so incredible to me is we don't codify it. So I absolutely believe in processing and in restorative justice and all those beautiful forms. Our work is body to body. So those two boys did not talk about their feelings for each other. They played and danced, and they did a body to body, skipping the frontal lobe. They went heart to heart without knowing it, and so it's exciting to see them change without ever labeling or addressing the issue.
Yes. Whereas, I think in school, but also in adult life, we said, okay, now let's identify the problem.
Right.
And then we can figure out what we need to do about the problem. And so then I think kids, but also, adults identify themselves as a problem.
Mm.
Yeah.
or I have a problem, rather than I am endlessly creative and I can
Mhm.
draw on my creativity, and then that solves the problem. So I think you're a generator of what we're calling new stories in the world, rather than the same old, same old.
That's beautiful. We think of it that way. We think of it as new possibilities that those new stories will create for these kids.
Yeah.
And it really comes back to everything that, that you've taught me, that we know, which is, can they fall in love with themselves a little bit? Parts of themselves that they didn't know were there, and they do. They're kind of tickled with themselves. They make up movement and everybody else follows the movement. My
Right.
good, the power of that, to have 40 people doing what you're doing. I mean,
Oh,
they've never experienced that,
yes. The inclusion, the welcoming, but also the value that you're demonstrating, this body to body, but also being able to have real influence, in the
Yeah,
moment. I can imagine it just, changing people's
yeah,
selves, that they're, wow, coming
yeah,
out of themselves.
You know what?
yeah. What?
That's funny to both of you is I coach people on the other side of the spectrum a little bit, like super successful, wanting to be more productive, da di da di da. But I find them to be as not self-loving, not feeling seen, not feeling like they matter. Like it seems like it's something that can really carry through, maybe change because you're doing it so young with them that maybe that is actually a better option, because when you see them as adults and they've done all the things that they're supposedly is successful, they still are not feeling seen and loved on the inside. So I'm curious, like, since our audience is probably more adults, I would imagine, I'm curious to like, what are things that you maybe do or see with the kids that could be helpful to like help us? Like this morning, I had someone who was like, how do I grow my self-love? How do I? And I was a little, I mean, I had a couple ideas, but I'd be curious to hear both of you around how do we help people increase self-love now in our, later years.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to that before you respond, Elena, that the heart of what you do and what you've seen, how that could be, nuggets of that, processes, different practices that could be useful for people throughout life, including their adult life. So little goodies that people could take away. They could, appreciate what you're doing and support it. But how about me? How about me? I'm an adult.
Well,
My
that changed my life.
what's in this for me, huh?
Well, that's so beautiful, because that's where working with the teachers has been so crucial, because certainly, none of us love ourselves enough, no matter how many. I mean, I'm 78 years old and I'm still working on what needs loving here, It's like asking that question is such a powerful question. Every time I start to move out into what's wrong out there, it's like, okay, what is it that needs loving here? And I always get an answer if I put my hands on my heart. It's the simplest tool I know. What needs loving here, And it's always some part of me that I've been criticizing unconsciously, or not loving, or not owning, It's just amazing to me. And we have this beautiful exercise in terms of nuggets. I love that. I love that word, nuggets. I haven't heard that word in a while. Little gems, right?
Yeah.
Which was taught to us by a beautiful sound healer called Vicky Dodd. And everything we have, which we get criticized for, I'm sure you can understand, comes from all over the place. Native Americans, Australians, all my teachers like you, all integrated together. I don't know if I've ever really made up anything, but what I have made up is the integration of all of that, right? And so, would you like me to just do a little bit of it?
Yes, please. That'd be wonderful.
All right. So it's usually a standing thing, but you can do it sitting, you can do it laying in bed, you can do it in a wheelchair. And you bring your hand, the first thought about it is you're going to bring your hand from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your spine, very, very slowly. And as you're moving your hand, you're imagining that you're reaching inside your spine and massaging the inside of your spine, which is what actually calms that crazy amygdala response, right? And then you say, which I love so much, as you're going out loud, so you hear it like out loud prayer, I am here and I know who I am.
Mm.
And you go all the way down, repeating and repeating, I am here and I know who I am. I am here and I know who I am. I am here and I know who I am. All the way down to the bottom of your spine. You just do that 3 times and you just feel your whole system come into coherence and alignment. It's like, okay, now my creativity is restored and I know what's next. You know, the classic Katie Hendricks question, what wants to happen next? I can't know that out here. I know that in here. And it's a beautiful tool. Just come home to my own creative soul's journey, you know? It just takes a couple minutes.
Well, one thing, there are a couple of things I love about this. One was hearing the different ways that you were speaking. You know, here I am, and I know who I am, and just and I think it's also really valuable to say it out loud. So I want to encourage people who are using this to let yourself speak, because you're opening this major gateway between your head and the rest of your body. And I find when I speak, it allows me to show up more. Whereas if I'm not speaking, I may be just thinking about it. It's not nearly as powerful if I declare with my own voice.
Yeah, really different. Yeah, that connection between sound and movement is so powerful. And just another little quick moment about this is you can go, I am here and I know I am loved. I am here and I am ready. I am here and I will show up for myself today. You can put that and I will, anything you need in that moment, you know? I mean, you did an exercise way back with us, Katie, where we had to enter the room and say, I am here, any way we wanted. Just walk in and say, I am here, right? Oh my God, that was so challenging for me. I was in tears, right? Because to actually be visible, to actually say, I am here, see me. You know, my little 2-year-old granddaughter, see me, Grandma, see me. You know, it's like, we just don't do that, you know? And just to say, I am here is a good beginning, right? And you really can begin over time to feel that sense of the internal body, being able to reach inside our bodies, you know? But
yeah.
I am here. I am here today.
Yes.
It's funny because as we're talking children, I guess the energy is more awakened for me. But as a child, when you said I am here, I was raised with massive narcissism around me, for sure. I actually have a tattoo that says I matter, just in case I forget. But when you said I am here, I had this like deep, deep sadness of hearing, and who cares? And so I'm curious to I'm sure it awakens, because I am here shocks a little bit of, do I deserve to be here? Is it relevant that I'm here? Does anybody care that I'm here? Like, it kind of took me, I don't think I would say that as my adult self, because I don't really relate to that language so much anymore, but it definitely, like, it dropped me in there a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear the feeling in your voice, and just want to take a moment to be with the sadness of not being truly seen. And that can continue when that comes up. That kind of grieving of not being seen can come up anytime. And So I'm just wondering how would it be for you to just say, here I am. Here I am, and I deserve to be here, or here I am, and I have value. Just to notice what happens for you.
Here I am. And I deserve to be here. I do. I've accomplished a beautiful journey around it, but it does. It's still, there's a little, it's as a child, what happened that I have this belief that I didn't? Like, have you ever been around a baby and what you think is like, ugh, you don't matter. I don't care. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen to us adults that somehow there are other adults that treat little people like that? Like, it puzzles me that there is such, like, what happened to them as when
I
they were
think
children?
that's the answer, is what happened to them. And I have a response to that too, Elena, but I'd love to hear from you.
Well, go ahead. I'm really following you.
Well, my sense is that if I claim my here I am and I have value, that ripple goes both forward and backward in time. So here I am can also come back to include my younger self, and that my adult self can give value and say, yes, I know that you were not recognized, and here you are. Come on, here you are. And it can also go forward in time and backward in time. So, for example, your claiming your value also, I think, ripples to your mother. So even though you may not ever say anything to her about it, she can, really benefit from you claiming your value and breaking up that old pattern.
Beautiful.
That's really beautiful.
I was thinking about too the ways in which that story is coming up to be healed. So it's like, oh, thank you. I thought I dealt with that. Oh, that needs a little more love, a little more attention. That little kid wants me to pick it up and take it to Katie's porch swing, right? Just pick that little one up and rock that baby, rock that 3-year-old, rock that 7-year-old, just every time that happens, because I really am with you. I will think I'm moving on, and then something will happen and my father will just flash in again, his incredible, and my fear will be right there. And for me, it's like, okay, what is it that needs a little healing and loving here? It's just like a detox moment in my mind, okay, that's good. Thank you for letting me know you're still niggling. But the other thing, I guess I believe, is we never get rid of any of that. We just keep transforming it, And for me, and I know for you from listening to what you and Katie do on this podcast, we transform it into impact for other. We transform it into making a difference on the earth, right? And everything that happened to me from my father is why all my work with these kids exists. I can thank him for his misery, because it birthed in me a compassion and understanding, so there is no kid who can show up that isn't okay with us. It just doesn't matter what they're doing. We know, like you just said, what happened to them, something. So that isn't our story. Our story is, where can we go from here?
You know what's profound too in what you're saying is Abby, who is our producer, who's always listening in the background, has now a 5-year-old, but I've known her for a couple of years. And the relationship that she has with Abby is the opposite of that. Like, she will show up on the screen and she's like, I'm here. Little incredibly alive, pumpkin. And Abby will say something to her that I get to hear. I get to witness one who actually, Abby is an incredible mother who's done her own healing. And so when she'll say something to, like, I see you, I hear you, I'm on a phone call right now, but I'm gonna, and like, it's attended to, the kid is impatient and the kid wants attention right now. And she doesn't let it walk all over her either. She has the boundaries, but in a really loving way. And I get to be, my bones get to receive it, which is so healing.
Yes. And what I'm hearing in what you're saying, Soph, is the genuine giving of attention.
Mm-hmm.
That full-bodied giving of attention rather than, oh, you know, always reminded me of that Monty Python scene and where they have all of the kids and she drops it, you know, she gives birth and she says, oh, Deirdre, could you take her, please? You know, it's like these kids are
One more.
just one more kid.
Uh-huh.
But the giving of attention is really at the heart of what I hear and see and have experienced you doing, Elena, is that your presence and giving of attention, but it's giving to you and giving to them and giving to the whole. And that weave, I think, is really what underlies and generates the play.
Yeah, it is a weave for sure. I mean, if we don't loop back in, we'll drain out. You know, it's true. I mean, I love what you said about the full attention because when I would come to visit my grandkids, they just really excited to see me. I mean, I love them, but I wonder what that's about. And I was reading stories to my granddaughter Jada, and she looked up at me at one point with her eyes just big and said, "You really love me, don't you, Grandma?"
Oh, oh, that's just so, oh, it makes me cry. It's wonderful that she's able to feel that and to articulate it.
Yeah, it was
You know, and to give
incredible.
that gift back to you of recognizing that she's being loved. Whoa,
Yeah.
that's emotional literacy in action. For sure.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we've started using this when we're having our core meetings where I will look at you and say, "You really love me, don't you, Katie?" And then you'll look at me and you'll say, "You really love me, don't you, Elena?" And people just melt. You know, it's like
Oh,
Yeah.
just one of those, it's a great tool, you know, if you've got somebody you can trust, right? But
well, I
it's
think it's
like,
a great tool in any case. And to let yourself be vulnerable enough to say that you really love me, don't you? Is whoa, that's, I mean, for some of us, that would be like coming out of the cave and going, you know, so, you know, because we're so convinced that we're not lovable, you know,
Mhm.
which
yeah, oh yeah.
you know, the basic human problem is that, you know, we feel that we're unlovable. And so we're looking everywhere for an indication that we are truly unlovable rather than I look at you and I know you love me. That's a
Mhm.
whole different relationship that gets to evolve.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a really great little tool.
There is a video online which we could link that I think is one of the videos that has been seen. I want to say 100 million people have seen this thing. And it's this little girl in front of the mirror. And she starts kind of slow. She's like, I love my teacher. I love my dress. I love, and then she goes on and on and on. And at the end, she's just like, I just love myself. And she's just like, you know, she's just all over it. And it is just watching her do it again is like a beautiful mirroring of what happens if we're not interrupted in our own loving of ourselves.
Yeah, what happens if we're not interrupted? What a beautiful question. I mean, that's everything, Sophie, that we're doing with these kids. They have been interrupted. Their development, their sense of self, their story, everything has been interrupted, you know, and we want to restore a flow from inside themselves to another possibility, you know. And I think to do that, we have to restore it in ourselves over and over again. You know, so we walk into a teacher who's yelling at the kids and punishing the kids. It's like, if I go there, I will not have anything to offer those kids. You know, it's like I got to come back to flow. Who am I? I am here. I know who I am. I bring what I bring, you know, and it's a constant, I think, life challenge to come back and back and back again to, okay, what needs loving here, you know, so I can radiate it, you know.
I also was just having this the expression meditation in action. This, what you're doing is also reweaving because we all have drop
Oh,
stitches and you know, or you know, holes in the fabric, and through presence and co-creating and creativity, you genuinely are reweaving wholeness in a way that's tangible, that not only can the kids experience, but their families, their communities. And I just imagine it has a huge ripple impact that you may never know.
Yeah.
And that you're coming home to, it's also, what can I take responsibility for? So, they're doing what they're doing. And if I get involved in that, I'm lost. But if I come in that meditation of here I am, and I know what to do, or here I am, and I'm curious about what's next. But the whole here I am, and then offering yourself in service of creativity, that's just an ongoing little miracle.
And as we're wrapping up, I just want to say, for those of you who don't watch the video, go watch this one, because the entire time we both have been called to, like, all the three of us have been called to just put our hands on our hearts and just really feel that presence. And I'm so grateful that you do what you do. These
thank you.
Be part of our world, and the world needs them.
Well, I do have to say that what Katie said earlier is the deeper truth, but just it feeds us so deeply. It is so enriching, and to watch the transformation before our eyes, change the expectation and you change the result, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, and so we it's got its hard moments, but we get fed for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Elena. I just feel so full and nourished just by considering that there's this whole adventure that's going on in the world that is giving many, many people the experience of feeling their wholeness and feeling included in community.
Thank you. It was so much fun to be here with you too. It's like, it's like a vacation, hanging out with the tribe, right? So thank you. Thank you for what you do. You guys are so there over and over again, bringing the message to all of us. So grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you.